Hey guys, welcome back to Rather Be Visin. My name is Sam, and today we're going to be taking a look at something that causes quite a few pain points when working in Tableau. And once you get your head around it, it's going to make your life a lot easier. Yes, I'm talking about cannot mix aggregate and non-aggregate functions within Tableau. So chances are, if you've been using Tableau at all, you will have seen this error come up. So today we're going to be talking about why it happens and how you can get around it. So let's hop into Tableau and take a look. So here we are, I'm in the good old EU Superstore. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by creating a calculated field. So if I come in to create a calculated field, I'm going to make a field for my profit ratio. So profit ratio. Now, we know that profit ratio is profit over sales. And so I can put profit over sales and it tells me calculation is valid. If I click OK and I bring that in, that is going to sum my profit ratio. And I'm going to see here, I've got 1,102. Now I know that I want this to be a percentage, so I'm going to change my default properties to a percentage. And straight away, we can see that that maybe isn't quite right. Now, the reason that it's coming up like this is because we haven't aggregated those figures across our data set. We've just done sales over profit. So it's doing it at each row and then it's summing them up across all of our data sets. So if we bring in some of our data here, if I bring in my order date, I'm going to bring in month. And if I bring in product, you can see the figures start to get a bit smaller. If we come down to the very lowest aggregation, we can see that the figures are a bit more reasonable now. But because we haven't aggregated our figures, it's doing it on each individual row. If we have a look at the data source here, we can see exactly what this looks like. So we can see that my profit ratio for this particular item or this line item here is about 50%. So if we have a look at sales, 79, profit 40, yes, that's about 50%. And so because we're not aggregating those figures within our calculation is doing this for each individual line. And then when we're pulling it into the view, it's summing them all up, which is why we're getting that 100 million%. So in order to fix that, what we're going to do is I'm just going to come into my profit ratio calculation. I'm going to edit it here. I'm going to wrap my profit and my sales in a sum function. And now what this is going to do is, regardless of how granular my view is, it's going to sum the profit values and the sales values and then do the profit over sales. So if I click apply on that, this is now going to fall over because here we had it as a sum and it's no longer going to be a sum, it's just going to be the aggregate figure. So now if I bring in my profit ratio onto text, you can see these values are a lot more reasonable. And if I take these out and just go just to month, you can see we're now getting around that 13% that we expect with this data set. And you can see here I've now got, because I've aggregated these values. So now that we understand why these calculations run like that, we can start to understand why we get that error that we get. So if I come in and edit my calculation again, if I do just the sum of profit over sales, that is going to give me an error. And if I have a look at the error, it will say that I cannot mix aggregate and non-aggregate arguments within this function. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying I want to sum all of my profit figures and then I want to divide that by each line of sales, which obviously we can't do within Tableau. It gives us some wild numbers, so it's straight up telling us it's not going to do it. So if I put the sum back on this, you can see the calculation is now valid. So if ever you get that error, it might just be that one of the fields within your view is not aggregated. Let's take a look at another example. So let's say I'm going to do a new calculated field. I'm going to do profit ratio by quantity. And I'm going to bring in my profit ratio and I'm going to divide that by quantity. Now you can see again, it's given us this error. Now we've not put our sum around profit ratio and we've not put it around quantity, and ideally we'd expect that that would work, but that's not the case because we've already aggregated our profit ratio in that original calculation when we've wrapped it in the sum. So what we need to do here is wrap our quantity in a sum, and then it'll tell us the calculation is valid. Now I'm not sure what this is going to give us, probably something wacky, yeah, but that's sort of the logic behind it. Now another way that this can happen is, let's say we are creating a calculated field, and I'm going to call this office supplies profit ratio. So here I'm going to do an if, and I'm going to do category equals office supplies. Then I want to pull through my profit ratio end. Now here I've called a dimension. So our category contains office supplies, technology and furniture. And when I've put that in, I simply just want to pull through the profit ratio, but only if my category is office supplies. I'm getting an error. And if I have a look at here, you can see again it's because we've got one aggregate and one non-aggregate. And the non-aggregate is this category here because it's still being held at a row level. Now in order to get around this, if you're using sort of dimensions, string functions, in order to pull together some calculations and you get this error, the way that you can get around it is if we wrap our category in a max or a min. But what we're doing here is saying, pull me through the max category. So that is straight away, it's going to aggregate the categories. So it's going to take all the categories, kind of treat them almost as if they were a number and look at the largest value. Now, obviously for our category, we've only got 3 string values. So it's just going to pull through office supplies. So now we can pull this into our view. So I'm going to bring category up into columns, and then I'm going to bring in my office supplies profit ratio, and you can see I've got nothing in there for furniture, nothing in there for technology, but I'm pulling through my office supplies. So that's how you deal with that error. If you are getting that error and you haven't made sure that they're all at the same level of aggregation, all the fields that you're pulling in, then you just need to play around and make sure that you get them all to the same level of aggregation. If you're using string values, you can wrap them in a max and that will work for you. Anyway, that was the tip for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.